when we do think about the domestic locations, people are so obsessed with what they're seeing on TV that they want to go to the places where they saw something filmed. So like everyone was all about, hey, the White Lotus was at that property in Hawaii, you know, in Wailea Beach or Maui or whatever it was. I want to go there and feel like I was on the White Lotus. I want to go and sit at that pool, right? And then, you know, in Newport, Rhode Island, the Gilded Age, you know, take me to the mansion, bring me to a Gilded Age experience. Those are what we're seeing, you know, in 2025. We're going to see that even more because these like really hot and trendy TV shows are being filmed in these destinations that are making them look really cool and enticing.
All right. Happy New Year. We are here. It's 2025. I can't believe we made it. 2024 seems like it was a whirlwind, but we're here to talk about some incredible new event trends that are happening across the board. So everything from event brands being built, the personalization, health and wellness, technology, some event design trends. I think we're going to unpack it all in this episode. So I'm super excited to dive into this. And I think we're going to cover out a lot. And I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions about what we're talking about for sure.
Absolutely. I feel like 2025 sounded like year of the future. And it, like if you were to read a book years ago, it would have been like down the road in 2025, but we're here and we're living it. And there is some futuristic element to what's happening in today's world and, you know, modernization and AI and things like that. But there's so much more to what's happening in the event landscape, in my opinion. And for me, it really starts with unreasonable hospitality. And I think that that is the trend that I want to kick it off with today. I don't know if you've read the book or even watched the TV show The Bear. That's another really great example of where that idea of unreasonable hospitality has come to fruition. But even the president of IRF, the Incentive Research Foundation, she spoke about how this is the year of unreasonable hospitality, you know, especially with how many things are automated and how much AI is, you know, relevant into what we're doing, making sure we take things a step further and do things more than we've ever done before to provide service in every step of the process for our events. That I believe is the biggest overarching trend, being in hospitality and being in the service industry. You know, there's little things that you don't even realize you're doing, but make all the difference to your clients or to your attendees. And, you know, for an example, here's a little confession, actually, let's kick it right off, right? We were doing a program for a gentleman who's very health conscious. His wife actually has a lot of immunocompromised elements, and he even still wears a mask every day to his programs and to work. He loves Sprite Zero and Crown Royal. Tell me the last time you went to a restaurant and saw Sprite Zero on the menu. You don't. So yeah. We took it, you know, to the point where we had Sprite Zero at the hotel for him and, you know, set it up for when he was dining at the hotel. You know, he was there for 7 days. But we also went to this really, really high-end steak restaurant one night for dinner right before the whole program kicked off. And, you know, knowing he was going to order a cocktail, it was the kind of place you order a martini or something kind of fun. And he was probably going to struggle with what his order was going to be because he always gets Sprite Zero. Well, one of my colleagues actually packed a bottle of Sprite Zero in her purse, had it ready to go. And when he went to make his drink order, she said, you know, order Crown Royal. I've got your Sprite Zero right here. Get a side of rocks. And he was blown away by that little extra gesture of hospitality on a program that was 2 waves of, you know, 750 people and all these elements of the program that, you know, we could have had little touch points, and we did have little touch points. But that moment before the program started where we were to set the tone that like, we are going to go above and beyond for you in every sense of the way, was a gesture of unreasonable hospitality that I think is going to be how event planning companies separate themselves from each other in 2025. And that's just a sort of a big picture trend that I'm seeing so far. Ashley, what's a trend that you're excited about this year?
I mean, I think honestly, the big takeaway I had is FOMO is back, right? I think that is kind of the buzz for 2025. People are looking for quality experiences over quantity. They want them to be curated, exclusive, often single purpose events, to really build this momentum of like, what am I missing out on if I don't attend? So I think that was something that I thought was really interesting. This FOMO is back mentality. We're going into 2025. We all have a fear of missing out. So let's continue to build that momentum, right?
Yeah, and I think it's not just on an in-person event, it's on a virtual one too, or in any sort of event capacity. Recently, when the Golden Globes went live on air, Nikki Glazer, who I think is hysterically funny ever since I saw her on the Tom Brady roast, I was, busy that night and I didn't watch the Golden Globes live. And I felt this FOMO of what was everyone talking about with all of her funny jokes, and immediately went to YouTube, watched the 10-minute opener that she did right before I got on an airplane the next day, instead of my normal podcast or whatever else I would watch at that time or listen to at that time. And that's where I think the FOMO is different now than it used to be. It's not just, do I have to be at that event and do that activation? It's, if I wasn't there, how can I know about it, even from social media or other capacities, so that I feel like I was part of what's going on in the world or what's going on in my particular segment of the world at that conference. So
yeah,
that's
for sure. I mean, everything is moving so fast, right? So we have this constant saturation of, information at our fingertips. So yeah, I think it's relevant that, you want to be able to know, even if you aren't able to attend. For instance, we have several of our team members at PCMA convene, and I have been tuning in rigorously to see what is happening at PCMA convene, because I know that there's going to be incredible content, incredible networking opportunities. So yeah, we want to be included. So yeah, convening leaders, I'm all over it.
I feel the same way about convening leaders. It's that show that you start off the year with that really sets the tone for the year ahead. I've gone probably, 6 or 7 times in the last 10 years. I'm a past president of PCMA New England, so I really believe in that show, and I just wasn't able to make it happen this year. So I've been like you. I've been on the edge of my seat on social media, watching all of my friends that are there and just picking up the little tidbits. But I'm excited for the team members that we do have there to come back and say to us, hey, this was my highlights. These were the things that were most impactful for me, because their keynotes are phenomenal usually, but their interactive, immersive experiences are really what today's show is looking for. So I don't know if you read the Freeman report that they just put out on their strategies, but the biggest takeaway I got from the Freeman report, which Freeman is really one of the biggest brands when it comes to event experiences in our industry, billion-dollar company, right? And they put out this report about how immersive experiences are 2025. Sometimes my team members make fun of me because I use the word vibe a lot lately. I've been talking about what's the vibe of your event going to be, right? I'm like, what's the vibe going to be? What type of feeling do you want to have when you leave the event? But I think the point is that it's so much more than what was that one thing you did that was cool. It was, how did you feel throughout the entire program, especially during the moments where you didn't expect to feel anything and you got to be a part of something. So, I was just talking to a client the other day and we were talking about her big evening event and blah, blah, blah. And then she said, but you know what I'm more interested in seeing in your proposal? I'm more interested in seeing what we can do in our quote unquote collaboration zones, which are going to be throughout the foyers that people can interact with all day long, in between sessions, during sessions. Our exhibitors will be there. It's a better value for sponsorship, but we want moments where people can engage and be immersed in something that ties back to our mission and our messaging, and everything we're trying to accomplish is personalized, is customized, is all these things, sustainable, you name it. But it gets people to talk to each other in a time that they wouldn't have normally talked to each other, where they would have had their head down, looking at their phone, going straight back to their room, things like that. So I think 2025 is all about creating a vibe and immersive experiences that bring that vibe to life.
I was going to say immersive or bust, but I guess the new tagline should be bring the vibes. I'm kind of digging that. I think the other thing too, and I think we can build off of that, is within that immersive experience that we provide, there is truly this emphasis on personalization, right? Mm-hmm. So I was reading a recent study, 72% of attendees are likelier to engage with content that feels directly related to them, or to an immersive experience that feels very personal to something that they're passionate or interested in. So again, it's that personalization at scale, the ability to be able to really build out content and build out experiences that resonate with your audience, and a diverse audience, right? So I think that's something too that I think we're going to have to continue to consider, is the impact and how people are going to respond to what we're providing. So I think that was another key thing that I thought was really interesting as we go into 2025.
Yeah. And we talked about this a little bit when we talked about some of the generational elements to, our meetings, and how important, having that connection is, but also how important having a connection back to the community is when you're planning an event, especially for the Generation Z. But, I had a call with a client on Friday and he said, we had a team meeting and every single event we produce this year has to have a CSR element to it in some capacity. Every single one. What that looks like can be different from event to event, but we cannot produce an event without giving back to the community in some way, shape, or form. And I think that kind of leans into what you were just saying about how, you have to feel connected to what you're doing and connected to the community to which you've visited. So I do think it also plays into destinations, right? Like we're talking about what are the destinations that are trending for 2025. I think there's some really, the big picture is that I think tier 2 destinations are what's moving ahead of tier 1. Tier 1s are always going to be busy. And I think when people talk about tier 2, they get a little diluted into the sense that like, okay, gone is Nashville, in is Louisville. No. Nashville is not going anywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Louisville's just gaining traction, right? As an example. But destinations that are even like tier 3, I think are going to be a little bit more relevant. Like Moab, Utah and Sun Valley, Idaho are the two that just came out from an Amex report last week. And it was like, okay, I would never have even thought of those destinations for meetings. I would think of them for where I might personally want to travel.
Right.
I might personally want to travel there. So does the attendees for a meeting. So those are the types of destinations we're seeing a little bit more. But I also think it's an international aspect as well, right? 2023 was the year of like Portugal and south of France and this sort of tropical oasis luxury destination because we were all so confined to domestic travel for so long. People were like, I just can't wait to get out there and be, wined and dined and experience something luxury. But then last year was all about Japan. Like Japan was the hottest destination. It was like, as far as I can and really, get to know Tokyo and Kyoto and that part of the world. So in 2025, I still think there's going to be an emphasis on international travel. I think with some of the costs and the tariffs and all the different things people are talking about in the US, Europe is still going to be the number one choice. With an additional emphasis on places like Costa Rica and other parts of the Caribbean islands, because I think that the gateway to those destinations are a little easier. And with some of the, rules now, if you fly to London, you now have to, fill out all this paperwork just across the border, right? So ease of travel is relevant as well, too. And so I'm still seeing a trend in increase in outbound travel outside of the US, especially in the incentive market, because people want to go somewhere that they've never been.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's like that ecotourism piece, right? People really want to be able to feel like, they're tied to the destination. They're able to kind of understand what are the, economic issues or, the environmental impacts within that destination. So I think that's why we see a lot of popularity with places, like you mentioned, some of those Caribbean destinations, Costa Rica, that have that kind of, yeah, for sure. I think that's really interesting.
And the other thing I was just going to mention, when we do think about the domestic locations, people are so obsessed with what they're seeing on TV that they want to go to the places where they saw something filmed. So everyone was all about, hey, the White Lotus was at that property in Hawaii, in Wailea Beach or Maui or whatever it was. I want to go there and feel like I was on the White Lotus. I want to go and sit at that pool, right? And then, in Newport, Rhode Island, the Gilded Age, take me to the mansion, bring me to a Gilded Age experience. Those are what we're seeing. In 2025, we're going to see that even more because these like really hot and trendy TV shows are being filmed in these destinations that are making them look really cool and enticing. And it's like, I want to be that person on that TV show. I want to be the main character. Take me there. So that's
well, and I think White Lotus is a perfect example because guess where it's going to be this year? Thailand. So they're building off of this, continual buzz for the Asian region, and I think that's going to be something too that we're also going to see, like the Thailand, Vietnam, things like that. Those are kind of those second tier areas, if you will, that are a little bit different than what we've seen before. I think it's going to be across the board. We're going to see those tier 2 and tier 3 impacts, both nationally and internationally for sure. I did want to talk a little bit about mental health and well-being because again, pivoting back to being obsessed with everything that's happening at Convening Leaders, a big thing that I'm seeing is all of these wellness moments built in. They had a sound bath the other day to round out the day. They have morning yoga sessions. And I think, as we look at, 2025, again, another study I saw recently that was published by MPI was 65% of planners are going to incorporate wellness events or wellness elements into their events, period. Because the benefit is it enhances focus, it enhances satisfaction. People feel like they're more engaged. They have a moment to breathe. I think that we're going to see that, and it's going to be a huge part of what we do as we move into 2025.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think fun runs were a thing, and the, more interesting well-being experiences. The one I saw recently that I think is definitely going to be a trend for 2025, because it's all over my Instagram feed, which is how you know it's trending, is the polar plunge. There's a hotel, the Fairmont Waterfront up in Vancouver, and they actually have a concierge that lead a polar plunge. The same way that, in other hotels, they have concierges and different members of the hotel community that lead 5K runs or lead, yoga sessions. Now we're leading polar plunges. And I think about in some of our colder destinations and that, that moment of memory, and, also all the things that are, so beneficial for you when you, go into a cold bath, but do it in the Atlantic Ocean, do it in Nova Scotia, do it in somewhere where you can be like, I jumped in the water in January, and you're going to have a lot more engagement probably than you would if you just built a little, tub in a ballroom, in a corner of a ballroom. So that's a wellness trend that I think is new and hot for 25.
All right. Cold plunges are in. The vibes say cold plunges are in. I love it. I love it. Well, I want to pivot a little bit because we talked a lot on our last podcast about event trends that we hoped would die and never be resurfaced again. I think we talked a lot about water beads, centerpieces being, something that never needs to come back. But I would like to talk about our event trends that we're seeing for design, because I thought there were some really interesting things that popped up in my mind. I think one of the things that is going to be super important as we look at designing events in 2025 is the biophilic designs. So this idea of bringing nature inside into spaces, potted plants, trees, really kind of that ability to feel like you're outside, even if you're in a ballroom. I think that is something that is going to be incredibly popular as we move into 2025.
I totally agree. And I think there's something about like the texture and the way it breaks up a space that people feel more comfortable, and like the oxygen levels increase and all of the wonderful things that plants do for us that make us want to go outside and break up our day. I was somewhere last week and I realized I didn't step outside for 24 hours, like 24 full hours. I never got a breath of fresh air. So to bring that inside is really necessary in order for us to accomplish what we want to accomplish in our day. But with that, I think agendas are breaking up the day more. They're giving you more time back for yourself. And I think 2025 is going to be the year in which you see these 2-3 hour gaps in the agenda built for you. And what that looks like can be whatever you want it to be, but that comes back to that customization and personalization, because while one person might want to get on the phone or check emails, another person might say, this is my one window to go explore the destination a little bit. Or another person might do a wellness activity, and, giving that optional activities, but not required, but building out time to keep up with your life during the meeting is very much a trend for 25.
Love that. All right. I'm going to give you two trends that I think are going to be very popular, and I'd love to get your take on which one you think is going to be the most popular.
Let's do it.
Okay. So minimalism, but with some luxury elements, or maximalism, color on color on color, even sometimes one color, one bloom, one idea of kind of a design element, but just blown up. So what do you think? Is it going to be more maximalism with color on color, or minimalism with luxe accents?
My head tends to go towards maximalizing anything. I think we're trying to stretch out every dollar and make it appear that we are really able to create the same type of events that we've created before, even if our budget may be flat, even though the costs of everything are 5 to 10% higher. So I think we don't want to come across as we didn't spend enough, or we didn't make an impact, or we didn't try hard enough to create something here. So I think people are going to go big with some flashy moments. I'm not saying they're going to throw up in the ballroom with the neon, with the neon glow stick, but I do think there are going to be some of those bigger, flashier moments that are going to maximize impact and attendees are going to kind of be drawn into.
All right. We'll have to see how that flushes out. I think I'm kind of leaning towards you too. I think the more is better. I think, this kind of idea of blowing out this colorful concept is really just going to resonate. I think people need that boost of serotonin.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, I was listening to Julius Solaris's event trend report, and, we're serotonin builders. That's what we are as event planners. Our goal is to build these, incredible moments of, boost to everyone's, morale, everyone's excitement. So yeah, we're really leading that charge if we lean in on all the color. So
yeah, we do these lookbooks that we share with our clients sometimes when we're on an initial call and we're like, hey, what vibe are you trying to create tonight? Right. So we have this conversation and, one of the team members will share their screen and we'll kind of flip through, here's some of the most trending, concepts for evening events. And we have a couple that are really bright and really focused on art and culture and, just vibrancy. And I almost every time, at least one person on the call is like, I'm drawn to that one. And honestly, it tends to be the younger person on that call, but I think that's really relevant. And that's really why that's becoming so interesting. So what else do you have for another one of those?
Well, I think the other thing too that I thought I really took away was this idea of every event is its own brand, right? So every time you do an event, it's your own branded experience. So threading that messaging out through the entire event, whether that's in the logoed items or, the different areas of immersive experiences, but like building this true event brand as you're kind of walking into the space so that it feels unique to that event. So I think that was one thing that I thought overarching with everything we're talking about, people need to focus on as they're looking at an event. How do I brand this one experience?
Absolutely. The other thing that everyone's talking about right now is the Pantone color of the year.
Oh yeah.
What are your thoughts on mocha?
I mean, I think we were all hoping, especially with, this lean towards this biophilic design space, I was hoping for something green, something like a sage, a forest, but we're leaning into mocha mousse. It's still a very natural color, so bringing in a lot of natural elements. I know our creative services team is having a blast with designing a bunch of different decor ideas around this Pantone color of the year. We waited with bated breath for it to be announced for sure, and we did a little bit of a fun social media push where we had some of our designers put their ideas out there of what they thought it was going to be. And we had several great guesses, anything from purple to browns to greens. But I think it really leans into this idea of this nature and natural, and kind of it allows a lot of other colors to shine within the space. So kind of leaning into that maximalist with that color is really easy to do. I love it. I think it's going to be great. But yeah, my heart was saying that we were going to have something green, especially with like the buzz of Wicked and all that other stuff. I thought green was going to be it, but you live and you learn.
How do you see the Pantone color really influencing our world as far as event, design goes? Because I think that, we all push out, hey, it's mocha, and it was sort of buzzing on social and whatnot. But how does that really flow into what we produce as far as event planners?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, everything is kind of interpreted, right? So I don't think it needs to be a complete literal interpretation of the color, but I think it's more of how do we kind of create these softer, more grounded experiences, that feel a little bit more intentional, that feel a little bit more, purposeful, and allow people to kind of have this breathing moment. Because I think that the color itself lends itself to this idea of grounding, connection to the earth, feeling like you're really kind of drawn into something, because it is a very muted color, right? It allows everything else to pop, so that diversity of the attendees can really stand out on their own behind that color. So I think it's taking it not necessarily as a literal interpretation of the color itself, but more of the meaning of the color and how it could really impact how we decide, how we design events or how we flow through an event itself. So that's what I'm excited for. What about you, Care?
Yeah, no, I was thinking in my head, they call it mocha, right? And so that brings me to like coffee. And I think about coffee as being one of the highest the highest spiked costs in event planning right now. I think that for me, the Mocha can have a little bit of that luxury. It can feel a little bit high end in a softer, subdued way, because people are afraid to make it appear like they're spending too much money on their events sometimes too, right? So from a perception standpoint, that Mocha vibe can be a little bit more diluted, but still, nice. So I think the fastest growing segment in event planning right now is internal meetings, because again, we're still dealing with this hybrid work environments. But the leisure side of hotel rooms specifically has decreased slightly, and to open up the door for more last minute pop-up smaller meetings to fill some holes in different markets. I recently learned about some online booking platforms that are turnkey solutions for small short-term meetings. We're talking specifically in the Smurf market, primarily, like average 14 rooms on peak, and 50% of these people are booking 30 to 120 days out. But these bookings are these internal meetings that are not talking to a human at the hotel and booking a turnkey hotel for a meeting. So I think that as we talk about trends, and we do, we can't ignore the AI in the room. For me, that is a trend that I'm going to be interested to see how it works. Does it take some of the pressure off the sales team at the hotel? Or does it put different types of pressure on them because they didn't have that human interaction to learn and engage and create those unreasonable hospitality moments, right? And for us as the DMC partner, those 14-person meetings still want CSR. They still want interactivity. They still need to build bonds with each other, and they're still calling us to create experiences for those small groups. So I don't know. I was just thinking about kind of the perception around some of those things, and to take away the human interaction in the booking process. What is that going to look like in 2025? And is that going to be growing to a further day window out, to a larger peak room night? What does that look like? I think it looks like it has a possibility, depending on the market and depending on the type of group, to be a growth market. And, are people going to lose jobs over it? I don't think so, because I still believe that the human connection and the unreasonable hospitality elements are going to be where hotels put their emphasis and their time, and they're going to need to still provide those even on those turnkey online platforms.
Yeah. And I think that's a continuation of a trend we saw too in 2024, where, we have all of this AI at our fingertips, and, it's really easy to be able to plug something into like a Mid-Journey and come up with this incredibly creative, immersed, experience built out to be able to see an event space transformed. But without the people behind it to really give you the ideas and the direction, it loses its appeal, right? So we saw a lot of that being kind of pulled back a little bit in 2024, that yes, we want to incorporate these AI elements. We want to be able to use them to make our lives simpler, to be able to automate tasks, but it doesn't replace the creative concept and the creativity and the ability to really kind of resonate with someone when you're kind of explaining the experience to them and showcasing exactly what it's going to look like. You can't miss that. So I think, it'll be interesting to see how that continues to grow with some of the things that you just mentioned, with how we can make automation really the key, but still have these moments of connectivity between humans, right? Because that's all what we do. We do events because we want to be able to connect with everyone.
Absolutely. And that's why, if anything, we're seeing a growth in events. The future is bright. I believe that the event planners listening to this should feel excited about 2025. They should feel, full of energy around what 2025 is going to look like from an experience standpoint, because we have an opportunity to be more creative than ever before. We have an opportunity to think differently and provide more types of creative interactions that are not just evening events, that are not just keynotes and things of that nature. We get to really think about every single moment of an event and how we can add our personalized touches to them and really create FOMO moments and unreasonable hospitality moments and connections to our community and everything in between. So I'm looking forward to the year ahead. I think it's going to be full of interaction, and I'm excited to see what our team produces across the country. I know we had very few confessions today. We were really focused on making sure we got this content out to you. So let's go ahead and next week, let's commit to doing a confession episode again next week.
All right. I love it. Yeah, we have a lot of great confessions, so I feel like we've got to dedicate an entire show to it so that we can really give it its agency. And yeah, I mean, I think honestly, it'll be a really fun one. So I'm excited.
Absolutely. So as you're thinking about the year ahead and what you have to look forward to and what you've done recently, I think let's focus on confessions that happen in the moment. Let's focus on confessions that are live and in the thick of the event. I want to hear about all your crazy stories. So send them through to us via any social platform, either to one of the two of us directly or to the Event Planner Confessions pages or even to CSI's pages. We're here to tell your stories if you'll let us. So we look forward to hearing from you and looking forward to another episode of Confessions down the road. But I think today was really valuable for the event trend landscape. And I'm really excited to bring 2025 to life and make it the best year yet.
Yeah, I think the vibes are right. So let's do it.